Hello, and welcome to your Mining Disrupt news update for Friday, August 25th, 2023. Today, we've got three stories to cover. Some bullish news out of the mining sector, Bitcoin miners turning trash into Bitcoin, and why the Bitcoin price took a recent slump recently. As ever, everything I say here should be taken for entertainment and education purposes only. Nothing I say is financial advice. Do your own research. Also, if you're interested in partnering with us as a sponsor, please reach out. Before I get into the numbers, make sure you check out the QR code right down there so you can get your tickets to Mining Disrupt 2024 happening in Miami, Florida, June 24th through the 27th. We're once again looking at timechaincalendar.com. Right now, the exchange rate it's all over the place, but right now it is $26,351 per Bitcoin. If you'd rather trade dollars for sats, you will get 3,796. The blocks are screaming in right now. If you look right here in the middle, top, leftish general area of the circle here, you'll see that they're coming in at under 9 minutes, 8 minutes and 50 seconds. Like I said, they are just screaming in. We've had 162 blocks come in, rolling last 24 hours. Your on-chain transaction fees are a little bit higher than they had been over the past couple of weeks. Priority is going to be 16 sats per VByte, and anytime is still a pretty reasonable 10. The rolling average on the hash rate is 402 for the last 14 days, and currently, and the single day average is a little bit wonky, but it's 445, which explains those blistering fast block times. You might think that with the price dropping a bit, which we're going to talk about here in a minute, and the difficulty adjustment going up, that Bitcoin miners would be shy to turn on their machines, but that's not the case. This from Cointelegraph. Bitcoin difficulty jumps 6% to new peak as miners ignore Bitcoin price dip. Bitcoin network fundamentals are in no mood to follow bearish Bitcoin price action this week. Despite Bitcoin/USD dropping 10% last week, Bitcoin miners appear to be taking the price downturn in their stride. This was cemented in network activity on August 22nd as difficulty increased by 6.17% at its latest bi-weekly automated adjustment. It just goes to show that there is always a lag in the system. And when I say the system, I mean the economic system at large. There are so many moving pieces happening behind the scenes that you and I will never be aware of. And there's no one person on the planet or no one group that really has a handle on everything. There are certain hedge funds, certain conglomerates, certain entities, BlackRock, Vanguard, etc., that try to have their finger on the pulse as best as they can, but even still, it's impossible to truly have a firm grasp on what's happening. You can have a better idea than one group, you could have a better idea than this other entity over here, but it's impossible to have a complete understanding of all of the economic factors happening around the globe at any one time. And there are things that happen in nature that could have a massive impact on the economy that nobody has any control over. All of a sudden, a storm comes in this area and people need certain supplies. Or the sun is really nice out here, so that increases energy supply for solar. There's just so many factors that are happening all the time that change this and change that. I'm saying this because even with all of the unknown factors happening in the world, there is one known thing that we can all see. People are still believing 100% fully in the Bitcoin network, and miners are right there leading the pack, churning out over 400 exahash, pumping power into the Bitcoin network on a daily basis. On the note of energy and finding it in places that you might not expect, we've got this story from Decrypt. Bitcoin mining startup raises $13 million to turn trash into Bitcoin. Bitcoin mining helps make use of stranded energy where it can't easily be sold back to the grid, according to Nodal co-founder Matthew Jones. Bitcoin mining is a secondary tool we use when grid economics aren't as favorable. Matthew Jones, Nodal Power's co-founder and chief operating officer, told Decrypt. We currently only do Bitcoin mining in our data centers. Currently, Nodal Power operates 2 mining data centers in the U.S., with plans for a third in early 2024. The first and largest site, located in the southwest U.S., primarily exports electricity to the local power utility, while the second site situated in the mountainous western region. And here from Daniel Batten, he says, increasing awareness of how much of a climate hazard landfills are and that power generation is the best use in most cases. Problem is, 75% of landfills can't sell to the grid, so must use that power on site. If only we had a user of that power on site. And obviously, if you're watching this, then you're probably aware that the user that he's mentioning there could very well be Bitcoin miners. They could show up with their trucks of miners on a cargo cart, unload, set up shop, and be plugged in a matter of days, I imagine. I don't know exactly what that process looks like, but if you have a source of power and you just need to tap into it, I don't think it would take all that long. Maybe a week setup at most, if you have it all ready to go and you've got a box unit with miners set up and just need a power source. I imagine it's a pretty plug and play type system. Now, the final story is about the price dip. And there's a lot of things that go into this. Like I mentioned earlier in today's segment, there are so many factors that go into the economics of the world. Why did the price of this go up? Why did it go down? What's happening over in this part of the country? What's happening over in that part of the world? What weather patterns are coming in? There are so many things that cause prices to rise and fall of any number of a million different products around the world, Bitcoin being one of those things that people buy, sell, and trade. And over here on Once in a Species, published by Jesse Myers over on Substack, he talks about 5 possible reasons, and I'm going to be focusing on number 5. Possible reasons for this sharp sell-off. 1. It's natural. Could be something that just happens. Over the last 2 months, Bitcoin's price became stuck between 29K and 31K. There was plenty of time for leverage to accumulate. Some traders betting that the price would break out to the upside, some betting to the downside. Okay, that makes sense. Number 2, it's opportunistic liquidation hunting. The result of accumulation of leveraged bets described above creates an opportunity for large market participants. Liquidation hunting. All right, that's another reason. Number 3, it's the last functioning fire alarm in global markets. I'm not going to go into that one in details. It's a little bit more complex, but okay, maybe. Number 4, it's big players selling to buy GBTC. Okay, maybe, but I don't know. I'm going to skip on to what I think is the most likely reason, number 5. It's Binance, trying not to collapse like FTX or Terra Luna. And here he goes into a little bit more depth on number 5. Finally, there's a possible explanation that could amount to a repeat of the FTX implosion causing short-term turmoil for Bitcoin, but especially for the rest of crypto. Except this time, instead of FTX, it could be Binance. Now, the reason I think that number 5 is a large player of all 5 of those, honestly, I think it's probably all 5 of those reasons that cause the price to drop, and then other things as well, maybe another 20 more small things that all happened at the same time because things kind of coalesce in these ways. But the reason I think that Binance is such a big player in this is because, well, let me just play here. Joe Consorti talks about it a little bit.
But the reasons to get off exchanges just keep piling up, and ultimately CZ is going to cry FUD until the cows come home, but this is very damning. This continues to be very damning, and ultimately it's not good for Bitcoin, right? Ultimately, Binance being the largest exchange, I want them to be flushed out because there's a lot of fraud, but you got to remember they own a lot of Bitcoin, and in order to prop themselves up and stave themselves off from failure, they're actively selling Bitcoin, their own, and in all likelihood, customers too. And so that's also going to exert downward pressure on Bitcoin's price.
We saw this with FTX, and it seems as though the clock is ticking for CZ and Binance. I am not happy to see any regular Joe and Jane hurt in the process. I never, ever want to see somebody hurt in the process. It's a strange position to be in, I'll admit. I want this process to go through. I want the free market to succeed. I want it to play out. And I do want the bad actors to be removed from the system. But I don't want anybody hurt. My truest of true hopes is that people are burned minimally or not at all. Maybe they get all of their coins off of an exchange. That is unquestionably the number one thing that you need to do when you buy Bitcoin. You almost certainly are going to get your coins through an exchange, from an exchange. That is the most common way that people get their Bitcoin. But you do not need to keep it there. It's like buying food at a grocery store and then just hoping that they have it when you want to come back and get it. Why wouldn't you take that home? It's your food. Now bring it home. That way that you have control over it. There's no reason for the grocery store to hang on to your food once you've paid for it. Bring it home with you. Bring your food home with you. Bring your Bitcorn home with you. That's the closing comment for today. Bring your corn home. Bring it home with you. Don't let it rot at the grocery store. And with that, I hope you have a great weekend. Until next time.